sad evening for us. This is, some of you may or may not know, but this is Selena's last meeting with us. She's going to be moving to the lower 48, but we are really thankful that City Council last night approved a contract for us to continue to work with her for GIS work. So she'll be with us, but not with us. So anyway, just wanted to mention that. Yeah, so we're thankful. We're sad that she's leaving, very sad, but we're also thankful that we get to continue to work with her.
Yeah.
So she does great.
Absolutely.
And then we got some feedback that a time extension would be helpful for the commissioner training. So I just wanted to propose and see what you thought. Would October 17th be sufficient extension of time there? It's like 2 months about. Because that would be, October 17th would be our work session in October, so we could kind of discuss some of those things that were reviewed during that training and go over that with you in our work session that day. Okay, so we'll shoot for that. Yeah.
Summer's busy. Okay, so with that, we'll kind of dig into the kind of the work session topics for tonight. And so basically what we did is we took all of your comments and we kind of addressed them in this new packet in regards to signs. And so just kind of quick overview, we'll discuss the signs and then development requirements, and then we'll kind of mix that in with the form-based code topic there. So, but Courtney will be walking you guys kind of through some of the pieces from your comments, and then feel free to continue to give us more feedback and refinement, and whenever it is you guys feel like we're ready, we can bring something kind of back to you in the form of actual like a resolution ordinance actually. So yeah, we'll have Courtney just kind of go ahead and walk you through some of those things right now.
All right, so I've added some images to the definitions, which I think was a request, but I didn't put images for every definition. So that's something as we kind of go through to see if you're okay with just the randomized images, and if there are any other definitions that you think would benefit from an image. So the word marquee was said to be not as relevant today, or for Stewart, I guess, as awning or canopy. So we put that in parentheses and focused more on the awning or canopy, but then I did provide imagery there below to kind of show that they're all quite similar between those three possible sign structures.
Yeah, I think having those images helps a lot, because it's hard to read through those and really wrap your brain around exactly what some of it is at times.
And then we further defined banner to just clarify that it would be secured to a solid structure at all four corners. Just to make it clearly different from flags or feather signs or any of those. And then I think we already had the definition of feather sign and flag, I believe, last time, but I added inflatable sign. I didn't think that one needed a picture, but if we need to put in a picture of the flapping guy.
I like the fact that you put on here that, whatever the definitions are, like the feather signs is prohibited, because if you didn't put that on there, somebody may just run with it and, go with that, the fact that you define it and also put down that it's a prohibited,
Okay.
item. Yeah.
Good, yeah, I was just gonna ask about that, if that was helpful to have it, or if it was confusing, or...
I think it's helpful.
No, that's
Okay.
clear. That's good. Yeah.
Okay. And then added the image for roof sign. Yeah, and I think those were the main changes, at least from the comments from the last work session that were made to the definitions. Is there anything else that?
So the roof sign could have both one on top of the building and one on the front of the part of it?
So there are,
Neighbors,
and there are stipulations for the roof sign in our code. And that, maybe I need to figure out a way to add some of those stipulations there. I gotta find,
I mean, if you have it in the
Where
code,
the-
I'm just looking for clarification. Somebody who wants to do it will probably dig a lot deeper than I will, but if you have
Right.
it there,
but yeah, there is a stipulation, it can't, the roof sign can't be taller than the allowed height for a structure.
right.
And I think it might even be something like it can't be 4 feet above the roof line, or there's some other stipulation. Anyway, we might come across it as we
Okay.
go through, but yeah. Yeah,
The prohibited is good, on that one. With the portable signs, the sandwich board there, allowable versus prohibited. And then banner, the other graphic, is allowable, because it doesn't say prohibited, right? Yeah, that's good. You don't need to say prohibited in the definitions, right? Because that gets a little too, these are just definitions, you know what I mean?
And then when you get later in code, they have that one paragraph that delineates what's prohibited, but a lot of times if you just have it in the definition, you're just gonna automatically assume that it's authorized, and then you may just go running with it anyway, but I think that's good having it both places, especially if somebody doesn't wanna go look for it. So,
right.
Yeah.
And
So
especially-
you want prohibited in the definitions? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yes, they do, yeah.
Which is
Right
like
here where it's here.
with the image, right?
Mhm, with the image, yeah.
And specifically those ones, those are ones that, I think it's important for the feather signs. I mean, some signs we don't really have problems with, but the feather signs do seem to, grow and spread. And so I think it is important that we communicate that, that we have that there when they do look at that, just because it's one of those, if it were other kinds of signs, it was not a big deal. You may not need that, but I think for this one it is, and it is important. And then, like 20 years ago, they didn't really have feather signs, or whenever they decided to start manufacturing those types of signs, and so it really wasn't even kind of an issue, but now it's, yeah,
Trending,
it's trending, right?
It's like that.
not here.
It's that same guy with the blow-up guy with the arms going everywhere.
Right.
Didn't have that one either, so
Right.
that's, yeah.
Right.
But is there a consequence if they keep, if they take it down, they put it up, they take it down? Are we also developing a commensurate sort of a, consequence to doing it? Because a lot of times when I was reading through this, I was looking at it and seeing that, things have to be in accordance with such and such, and, they only have so many days to take it down, but is there any, I hate to say it, development of teeth to ensure that people will comply?
Yeah, so in the next section, after definitions, administration, and enforcement, we added letter E
Right.
that says the administrative official reserves the right to issue abatement letters and to impose fines as established in chapter 15.01.050 and chapter 1.05 for any violations to the requirements of this chapter.
Right, I didn't see any fine schedule. I mean, it's just maybe I missed it when I looked through so.
Yeah, so there isn't, the fine schedule isn't established in this section of code, but those sections, those chapters that were referenced, they do establish the fine that
then
could be
I must have
issued.
looked in the wrong area there, okay.
And I think that off the top of my head, I think the city does have, there's two kind of established fine schedules depending on what it is. We have certain things it's $1,000 per day, and I think on other types of items, it's like a few $100s per day per infraction type of situation. So that's what the predetermined fine schedule is.
Okay, okay.
And the change, which we'll discuss later too, that we've done to temporary signs, where we've specifically eliminated flag banners, would then allow us to immediately, send out those abatement letters requesting that they remove those signs, versus now we're kind of stuck in this sticky situation of, oh, well, that's a banner. It can be allowed for 30 days temporarily. But we've removed that in this proposed code language so that we can have more more teeth in that sense, where code clearly says, no, it's not allowed ever.
Good, yeah. Clear as good.
Well, I guess the one exception to where it's allowed is, which we'll read, is like the 4th of July or Mermaid Festival, like those specific events, but anyway, so any questions on the administrative section?
I don't think so.
Okay, I don't think,
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, it says specific scheduled community events such as, is this like specifying the events right here, or are we, is this the thing that's just determining what those events are, or how will we, like, is that left up to, it seems unclear to me, actually.
did you jump to temporary signs? Or,
What page you on?
Yes, I'm on page 14.
Yeah, so actually that's kind of like a discussion point on like what do, if we're gonna do that, what are the specific ones? Because we do want, I think, leave it fairly close-ended, so that way it's, someone says like, oh, it's my birthday party.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
special community event, in my eyes, you know, type of thing, so.
so yeah, we could say, maybe allow it during these events, and then just state the events that they're allowed. So Mermaid Festival, 4th of July, I don't know if there's
Salmon Derby,
Salmon Derby.
I don't know, would those be the, I think that, those are kind of, I feel like the 3 main events that we feel like we have in the community.
Amusement Arts Fest will come back one day.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that would be a,
that's good signage.
Yeah.
What about the Christmas things that they have, you know, the Christmas, what is it, bazaars and stuff like this that they have sometimes down at the, don't they have something down at the railroad facility at times, so?
Yeah, that is.
the craft fair, is that what it is?
Yeah, I think that might be it, yeah.
First week in December.
Definitely want to leave room for that to come back strong. It did happen last year, didn't it?
Yeah.
It's got good history.
I mean, is it possible to leave it kind of open-ended, like looping it in with the city manager, saying like events endorsed by the city manager or something like that?
Or approval through the city
So we
manager.
don't have to
yeah.
rewrite code every time we think of a new event,
Right, right.
or,
Or they can apply through the city manager if it doesn't meet those criteria, and then the city manager may call, and then you
Yeah.
have to change the code, maybe.
Well, that word community was added somewhere. I'm like trying to find stuff, but I think that's good. Community events as opposed to like birthday parties or, you know.
And also that they last more than one day. Which, I mean, maybe someone has big weekend blowouts, but like these are festivals and usually like a 3-day, 2 to 3 day
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, so you're deciding
That would
whether to be,
help.
like such as the Mermaid Festival and 4th of July, those are examples. That's open-ended for more.
Don't they need to have
The question is to
permits though,
change
too?
it to.
You need a
These and
business
only these.
license.
Yeah, but is there any sort of permitting to have a particular, I mean, you have Mermaid Festival, but if you have a permit for a particular event, like if you have an event, you have an open event permit, or if you have alcohol, you have to get a certain permit for those things. I mean, if it's permitted through the city, then maybe you can, you know, that makes it official enough to have something, because that's a separate event. It's not just a business, it's a separate event being
Yeah, I
filmed.
guess so.
Don't you have a
That you bring that up
business
for, I can't think of, Randy Wells had events at the Touch a Teapot with vendors. So is that a sort of event that we want to allow mobile vendors in that specific location for that event to have flag banners, or do we want to restrict it?
I think I'd restrict a little bit more of that, because especially that is a very congested area, if you're just talking about like that one area, because it's also on a major, on the Seward Highway, which technically then you wonder what the state's regulations are, because that's a, you know, I think the state is a little bit more restrictive in what can be out on the roads.
What if we just left it really restrictive and just named,
Polar bear jump.
oh darn it, we keep you keep coming up with these ones, but yeah, I think, but I don't, yeah, I just want to, because I want to make sure that they are,
But are these city sponsored, like Mermaid Festival, Polar? No, so we
not
can't
really
even
city
say like.
sponsored, like, because even like, because the chamber puts on basically like the 4th of July, like Mount Marathon race and the vendors, that's a chamber event.
You
But I would
know,
definitely say it's
like
a
it.
community event, it's got a lot of history, it's long-standing, same with the Silver Salmon Derby.
and the Polar Bear, that's United Way, that's a fundraiser.
And
see, those
the
are
polar
all-
bear has been around for a long time. What I don't, I guess in my mind,
Yeah.
I want to have these very like, I don't want to have 14 events a year that we could, I mean, it's, at least in my mind anyway, I wanted like, just kind of reserve these for those special times, otherwise we're, I don't know. That's
Would-
my 2 cents.
And this is, and I was gonna say, we should probably put language in there that says that this is just for mobile vendors.
That's what I was
That like
thinking.
flag banners and portable signs may be allowed for mobile vendors during specific scheduled. So if we specify that's mobile vendors, then are there certain events where mobile vendors are more apt to go to? Like, I mean, I don't know, I can't remember. I guess there were maybe a handful of mobile vendors at the Polar Bear Jump, but not as,
I think
So
this-
that's what the temporary signs are pointing to, the vendors.
Just
Not
the
like,
mobile
not just like the
vendors, yeah.
stuff, you know, like it's SMAF on the light post, it looks really nice and everybody knows you come to town, right? Like announcing the event, you're more concerned with vendors?
no, yeah, it's primarily the mobile vendors.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
get that
associating
in
with the
there.
mobile vendors would work because these are events where there's multiple and they're gathering and trying to promote themselves.
Just even directing people where to go, you know, it's like a nice temporary sign. Yeah, get mobile vendors language in there.
Yeah.
If they're not all in one place, because it could be pretty chaotic and a bit dangerous on the road system if people are trying to read all these signs as they go through.
Well, I mean, there's like a bazillion people for any of those events, ideally anyway, so it's already chaotic. Like the 4th of July brings tons of people on traffic anyway,
So is that the idea, is like these huge events is where we're gonna
That's
allow
what-
this? Is
Yeah, I mean,
There's-
so think of,
community-wide?
at the Mermaid Festival and 4th of July, the vendors are isolated in one area,
Yeah,
and they all put up their flag banners and whatever to tell people, you know, Euro's here, whatever. I don't
kind
know.
of like attached to their
Yeah.
cart,
So,
right?
yeah, to their mobile vendor.
Yeah.
So that we're wanting to put language in code because right now code would restrict even flag banners in that situation. But we're not gonna go out there in 4th of July walking to every vendor saying, take down your flag banner. So we have to allow some sort of allowance.
Well, if they're right near
For
next to
those
their
events.
their mobile, you know, taco stand or whatever, then they're right there. That's and they're in a sort of a restricted area of some sort, or not restricted, but an area where they have a bunch of those vendors there in one place. I can see that being not too much of a problem. My biggest concern is the, you know, just the road, the visibility on the road, as far as people going through. But if it's not on the main thoroughfare or something like this, I think it's fine.
Yeah, 'cause things like that one, and with like the Mermaid, 4th of July, you're mostly like trying to get the attention of pedestrians.
Yeah.
It seems
Yeah,
like.
because the road's closed.
Yeah, versus,
Yeah.
So we would put language too that the, you know, the signs are limited to mobile vendors and limited to the location where the event is taking place.
Pretty much so.
That's good,
That makes
yeah.
good sense.
Which I mean is generally what they do, but
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds good.
are there, I mean, as far as approving like business permits, Mermaid Festival and 4th of July are the only ones that I can think of that we get mobile vendors applying for business licenses, but are there any others we should call out in this allowance or just leave it restricted to Mermaid Festival and?
when you had SMAF down here,
Yeah.
did you guys have any type of, you had like there was like a beer
There-
garden?
There was the beer garden in the tent, and there was supposed to be more mobile food trucks, but I think the weather, we ended up with only like one.
What was it, the music festival?
Yeah, when it
Yeah.
was downtown, whatever, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when it's been at the cruise ship terminal, we've had a couple of trucks outside. There's obviously a lot of food inside as well.
But in some ways, I think, Courtney, your definition may work well there because it said specific scheduled community events. And if you added that additional language that we just talked about with the mobile vendors and that type of thing and within the area, because such as Mermaid Festival and the 4th of July, I think this map would be a consideration under that type of thing as
Yeah.
well. And we don't have to change the language every time to,
Exactly. Maybe anytime more than 3 vendors. Maybe.
Plus naming specifics almost gives them, I don't know, a little wiggle room, like, oh, it says Mermaid Festival, you can do this type of stuff, you know? Like maybe not, I don't know.
It'll
Like,
fall
like
into
they
their
could,
place.
they could embellish, like, I don't know. Like, I can have signs down the road because it's Mermaid Festival, you know, it says that this is an exception. I don't know. Like just, you know, listing events versus not listing.
I would still think that if you mention those, like you say, Mermaid Festival and 4th of July, and as determined and approved through the city administration.
Yeah.
If it meets that criteria, that gives you the opportunity to say yes or no, and to whatever special event that comes through.
Yeah.
It just puts the burden on you guys or the city manager's office, which that's fine. They get paid the big bucks for it.
Right under that is temporary signs posted on city property require approval by the city manager.
Yeah, and that one, I think, that one has a big portion of that has to do with the portion there at the boardwalk. Right there by the lagoon.
Yeah, there's a few.
There is a sign that's on there. We had a big discussion this year about that, and that little, there's a placard on there that says you have to get permission from the city manager to be able to get approval from city manager. It is a great community space, but it is city property at the same time too. There's been, I think, some not great uses of that or correct uses of community events or those types of things, so, yeah.
There's like 4 there right now. Busy time.
It's a big billboard.
Carol?
Big
I'm
city.
not sure where to jump in, because I do have a lot of comments, but I did want to jump in on this, just previous topic. On page 14, under R2, it says temporary signs may include banners, but you should say except as under 6. Where now it says
Flag banners.
banners are allowed, so just have to be really clear. And maybe those could be grouped together or combined. So it's really easy to find. And on that boardwalk, signs are not allowed in the park. And so the city is violating our code by plastering all those signs in our park.
In the Benny Benson?
Yep.
Yep,
And
yeah.
it's real handy, I've written about it, you know, what it feels, it's a traffic hazard. It was really sad when the, congratulations to the class of 2003, and the plow goes by and just covers it with slush. It was just really sad looking sign. But people are trying to read these signs, now, you know, there's a whole bunch of them there.
Yeah, it's a hazard. It's a
Including,
hazard.
you know, hiring for whatever, the prison or.
Yeah, $10,000
It's like,
bonus.
That's not appropriate. It's not a community city event. So I just feel the city needs to adhere to its code, and no sign should be allowed in the park. It's not I don't know, it's just a traffic hazard.
I still think that, if I recall correctly, that the state has some significant limitations of what can be put on a highway, and that was, I'm sort of wondering why the state hasn't said anything about that, because I think there's not supposed to be any signage or billboards or anything on a state highway.
Within 600 feet
Yeah.
of their right of way. Or in their,
Yeah, and they won't even, I mean, the state's so restricted, we asked to put up a sign that would direct people to SMIC on the other side of the bay there.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. And that's, you know, a legitimate sign.
Right.
It's not a temporary sign.
No, no, so, yeah.
So, Chair, if you would, let me know when it's appropriate for me to speak about it.
Yeah, just give me a heads up, yeah. Yeah.
But I thought the court was just going to end it before.
Well, if there's certain areas that you have a comment of something, of some sort, yeah, let me know. Because it's hard, she's looking at us and you're over there, so, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Just so we don't miss any area, we'll just jump back to page 9. There were any comments or input for measurement standards? Nothing, I believe, changed on this one from our first work session, except just some wording on the graphics for height. I took out maximum 20 feet.
Carol?
The most critical graphic I think this section needs is explaining under D, for example, the sign area shall be computed by the measurement of one of the faces when two display faces are joined and are parallel and are within 30 degrees of being parallel to each other and are part of the same sign structure. That begs for example, because that just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
That's why the images are so important. The
Right.
ones that I've seen so far, that I
Right,
needed
but
them.
And then, wasn't there another one that said 3 geometric shapes? You know, can you compute the sine angle of I don't know, but that would be something, when we had the work session on that addition to this code, nobody understood what was being introduced. It was so complicated. And we didn't have any pictures, really. So, if that's gonna, if that kind of measurement is gonna stay in our code, please provide guidance with some more clear illustrations of
Okay.
these geometric shapes and
Yeah, because I couldn't tell what some of those was, and
Yeah, the geometric shapes is in letter C. Yeah, and I can see what I can come up for another, just an additional graphic to show that. I think it was what I understand by not more than three geometric shapes would be, so the image right now is just one geometric shape, around the letter sign. But if it was, say the sign was like 2 lines, so you had, I don't know, yeah, 2 lines, then you'd have the 2 geometric shapes of two rectangles. So does that make sense? Anyway, so I can draw a graphic of that.
yeah, I need a visual.
To see by the looks, the graphic would be better. All right, so we'll do that.
And on that same page, if I may, the figure 15.20, C, those 2 signs, the freestanding sign and the pole sign, are prohibited on page 15. So, inconsistent, so on page 15, those 2 signs are prohibited.
Oh, are you talking about the small yard signs?
Well, it's not labeled, well, the freestanding sign and the pole sign on page 10,
Yeah, on D 1520C,
on page 16.
yeah. They're prohibited.
So that's true, please label them so people
But
understand.
sorry,
They're under
where are you
temporary signs, I
Yeah,
think,
where are you
though.
seeing that they're prohibited? Because
On page 16,
Yeah.
it says prohibited on the graphic.
the portable signs.
Well,
Is that what you're-
all I'm seeing is a freestanding sign and a pole sign, and it says prohibited.
On page 16?
Figure
This-
1520G.
Right,
Oh yeah, that's portable signs.
so how
So
are
if-
those different from the ones on 1520C? What I'm seeing
Those
is
are up-
2 poles and a single pole.
Yeah, those would be like a freestanding sign it's like in the ground.
They have
It's
a
not
base on
a
'em.
portable
Yeah.
sign, like
Oh,
you
they
couldn't
have a
go
base.
move
Okay.
it.
Okay,
Maybe under like a portable weighted base on those ones.
maybe you could, there's a base or something, because when I look at those, what I'm seeing is two legs or one leg.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
specify, instead of just saying figure 1520G, I'll specify these are portable signs.
Okay,
Because that is the only difference
Okay.
there.
Why are those ones prohibited
Uh,
compared to the
That's-
sandwich board?
it's a good question, because letter F says portable signs except sandwich boards are prohibited.
Yeah, feels,
That's the only
seems
reason.
like no good reason. Old code, got it.
Yeah, so, and that's something if we wanna
Good time
just,
to change.
Maybe they blow over more easily.
Yeah.
I've seen a house up by my house is for sale, and it's just a sign in a coffee can with gravel every day, you know?
There's a-
And whereas, at least the sandwich board sign, you can put some sandbags in the middle support, and they seem to hold up better, not, you know, talk to campground about it, but they hold it better than these other guys.
I would
So
agree.
that would be a good reason, because they're always down, and, you know,
Yeah,
I,
Yeah, and like you gotta get a sandwich board, you know, maybe that'll be like, I'm not gonna do it. You know?
Well, it's a pretty big price difference, really, so that's what I was thinking.
Like maybe people have, well, I got this sign, I just put in, it's gotta be a sandwich board.
And it seems like that would fall onto the business if their sign falls over a lot. That's not desirable to them, you know, like,
Right.
what does code need to tell them? That you shouldn't use that kind of sign in the windy area, you know, so. Maybe worth.
I'm sure they make some nice signs that have some fairly windproof with weighted bases that work well. Do you think that in this day and age?
Yeah, probably.
okay, so we'll add those additional graphics to measurement standards. Any other thoughts, comments?
just in general, for all of the illustrations, which I really appreciate, is that you have to maintain a minimum font size. It's like, what does that say? Maximum, it says max, don't use any abbreviations. Max. Say maximum, and then, oh yeah, I got my magnifying glass. It says 6 SQFT on page 15, for example, in the small yard size. And then snipe signs, holy cow, I would need a microscope to see that. So please adhere to some standards about minimum font size, like 12. When you're doing interpretive signs, that's a minimum.
Well, how about, just so, because I'm not sure, I can't remember right now, like, since we're on page 15, we'll stick with that. So the headings of banners, feather signs, political signs, do you want that to be the minimum? Should that be the minimum size, or is like the word prohibited a decent enough minimum size? And I can't tell you what that size
No,
is
that's
font-wise,
not-
but just tell me.
That's like a 5.
Like-
It's too small.
So you would want,
Everything minimum 12.
okay, so the size that the banners, feather signs, and political signs are written in, is that a sufficient minimum
Yeah,
size?
I can read those easily.
Okay, so whatever that number is,
Uh-huh.
I'll stick to that being the
Right.
minimum.
It's all important information. Don't abbreviate, write out square feet, write out maximum, write out whatever it says under snipe signs. I can't even read that.
It's a prohibitive of all Yes, it's prohibitive of all premises and in right-of-ways.
Right.
Yes.
You want people really to quickly understand what's going on. And then under the roof sign, while we're on graphics, under roof signs, you can also have a roof sign that's painted on top of the roof, that's on the roof. So prohibit those as well. We're right now saying you can't have like a sign exceeding so much above the ground and this and that, but it doesn't say anything about painting a sign on part of the roof.
Okay, so you mean not even just a sign sticking up from the roof, but like painting it?
It's painted right on the roof, so you, like from air, from a short distance, if the roof is slanted, you could read it. We don't really need all that advertising on roofs.
That is
So this would be a
interesting.
good place to say no.
Fortunately, I don't think anybody's done that yet.
Well, they might, we have so many sightseeing tours,
Mm.
like, oh, after tour, there's a bar down there, we can go eat a drink. But please just consider that and prohibiting a roof sign painted on the roof.
Well, So what, before I forget, what page are we on now so we can continue?
We are still on page 11 if there are any other
Okay.
comments about measurement standards.
Okay.
If there are none, then we can move on to page 12.
I think right now we can. Go ahead and do that.
Okay. So there was a comment last work session about specifying more guidance or language around not having signs in disrepair. So letter E basically kind of covered that, but I just added additional, specifications that signs must be maintained and not faded and frayed. And then letter E, of course, covers the rest of, signs must be maintained in a state of security, safety, and repair.
So then you'll, if you have a sign that's frayed or whatever, because I'm assuming if they haven't done anything with it, you guys are gonna have to, or somebody has to notify them. Is that when you're gonna give them a, a particular time frame to have it removed or repaired and then go from there? Yes, okay.
Yeah. So we would, send them a letter and,
Okay.
hey, fix this within the season or.
Yeah, I know,
Something
whatever your
reasonable,
timeframes
yeah.
are, but there's just some sort of, after a period of time, things get a little, unpleasant to look at.
Yeah, and their, signs that are no longer in use are prohibited. So, like abandoned signs, that sort of thing. But yeah, this would pertain to businesses that are still in operation but just haven't maintained their sign. They would be required to keep it in proper maintenance.
Okay.
So I think letter L is currently what we have, and on page 12 for roof sign standards. So in no case shall any portion of a sign attached to a building exceed the maximum allowable building height limit or more than 4 feet above the roof line, facade, parapet height, whichever is less.
That might be where you might put, where Carol's comment about having nothing on there. I don't know if that would be, you'd have to do a separate area where it's not written on the roof itself, since we're talking about roofs. I don't know if that would be an area to add that to it.
Yeah, either there or maybe prohibited sign or
Yeah.
something, yeah.
I was thinking under that section 1520.025, add R, signs on rooftops are prohibited.
Oh, it has standalone?
Yeah. So it's really clear.
All right, what are we going to next? Let's see.
So, yeah, there wasn't, there weren't any major proposed changes for requirements applicable to all signs, unless there was input. We can move on to signs.
Yeah, I have just one thing, it's on O, it says signs on vehicles primarily and actively used for business purpose which identify the firm or its principal product. Since we have vehicles that have trucks, or people that have businesses that are driving around and they park in somebody else's parking lot, and I'm not sure how best to manage that. It's not like a vendor, but they're just parking there to draw attention to their business elsewhere. That, I don't know, because that's constitutes almost a billboard-ish advertising kind of
Right.
thing.
So on page 15, letter C, does call out that if a vehicle or trailer with a sign attached to it is parked or located for the primary purpose of displaying the said sign, that is considered a prohibited sign.
What page is that?
Page 15,
Let's see.
letter C.
Let me get to that. Oh, wrong 15. Okay. I have that there. Do you have that? Prohibited signs, yeah, because I was looking at here. Maybe it's not showing up in mine the same.
No, so just lower.
There we go. There we go. That one? Yeah, it's historic, okay. Preservation Commission does not exceed 20 square feet in size, that one? That's 13, sorry. It's always fun driving through this thing here. It's all right, I'll take your word for it.
It's on page
I was gonna
15.
say, right here.
Right under prohibited signs.
Yeah, that's what I was said there earlier. That's
I
okay.
could take those temporary signs.
Yeah, signs that have placed in vehicles or parked and located, yeah, that's displaying signs, sales of some of the permits, vehicles with signs using normal course of business. So if they're in their own parking lot, that's good, but if they're in somebody else's parking lot or something like this, that needs to be
And it would
somewhat
be,
addressed.
yeah, then it would be prohibited and needs to be.
Sort of hard to chase them down, though, I suppose, but
So,
Yeah. So there is something in code that prohibits that. Then it's just a matter of, yeah.
following them up, because we have several of them in town now that are just sort of there. Hopefully they'll get that addressed.
Mhm.
Some of them may not even know it, so that's the thing.
Yeah, right. Now back to page 14.
Oh, Carol, real quick,
Oh, I am on 14.
Yeah,
there you are,
okay.
ahead of us.
But I was gonna talk about, F. Were you gonna talk about F?
Nope, but that's perfect. You
Can we
can-
talk about F?
Yeah.
Okay, so I noticed that it says signs advertising subdivision tract developments of 2 or more acres, not exceeding 32 square feet, and limited to one such sign per street frontage. So my comments, and these were like done in June, it's been so long, so I'm trying to remember, but it seems like unlike most of the other signs allowed in this section without permits, these up to, not exceeding 32 square feet, that's a 4x8 sheet of plywood. These are quite large and could have multiple 4x8 foot signs. So I suggest requiring these to have a permit. Just because every other sign is like, oh, it's a little, 2x1 or whatever, but these are huge. And maybe they would merit having a permit because the other large signs that large do as well. So that's just something to think about. And then, what about the smaller vacant lot developments? We have a lot of vacant lots less than 2 acres, 2 or more acres. So should they be allowed smaller signs, not to exceed 4 square feet, and limited to one such sign per street frontage, in keeping with their, much smaller, less than 2 acres? That's not addressed.
So what sort of development are you, what kind of signage are you talking about? Somebody just putting up a home or a small business coming soon or something like that, or?
Under the signs advertising subdivision tract developments.
Right.
So, I don't know. It just seems, signs allowed without permits. So you do address large tracts, but how about the smaller ones that are, means an acre is still a pretty big subdivision tract now. So I think they should be also allowed to sign without a permit, that the smaller sign, not 4x8, but one that's keeping in this code, that you can have signs without permits if they're smaller, But that one that's 32 square feet really popped out, and then the omission of the smaller vacant lot developments, maybe they can be allowed without a permit to have smaller signs, not to exceed 4 square feet, because an acre, people are gonna be able to see everything really well. They don't need to get a permit for a 4x8, but a smaller sign, advertising Phoenix Lake development, coming soon. They can have a smaller sign.
It makes sense. I mean, if you're authorizing it for a larger piece of property, you could probably do it, just have it commensurate to the size of what you're getting.
Right.
You could probably just throw that in there of some sort, so at least you have somebody doing something that you put some limits on it, as opposed to somebody putting something just arbitrarily up there in large. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm suggesting 32 square foot sign that's too big for without a permit, put that in a section that requires a permit, and then allow a smaller permit for a smaller property size.
So we probably have to address, if we address that, the political signs, since 32 square foot sign is allowed in commercial districts.
That's a huge sign. There's one on Ash Road
Yeah, it
Lisa
is.
Murkowski is still up.
Still there, yeah.
It's huge, it's so unnecessary in our town, we have such, city limits, I think,
Yeah.
such huge signs. And they're in your face, and you don't take them down.
Yeah, I think there was a requirement after 30 days after the election, they're supposed to have those down.
Yeah. And Nash Road, no, that section, Nash Road's not city limits, that's an example of,
Mhm.
So that's something then to contemplate then, is the 32 square foot sign in commercial districts for political signs something we want to address, reduce, or?
Yeah, I was under the impression that political signs had to be just that small, ones that they've all been producing for a period of time. I know it's like 2 by 3, and they put those in, and they just,
that would be nice, wouldn't it?
that's all they do, yeah, that's, should be, I think that's within city limits. I don't think we can do, I mean, Lisa Murkowski's sign out there, I'm not sure if the borough has any limits at all on anything, but that was,
But in certain districts,
Mhm.
we had a legal one, a huge 32 square foot sign in a residential zone on Second, and they were asked to take it down, it took a really long time. But in other districts, commercial,
Mhm.
which is like along Third Avenue, Don Young, it's this giant sign, you can hardly see around it. It's not necessary, so I would really advocate for the maximum to be what is it, 2 by 3? That seems, whatever standard.
For political signs, certainly, that's for sure, yeah.
That would be really quite a relief,
Yeah.
because we just get bombarded. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but, because, I already thought that was already a rule, because everybody that I've known that I've run for city council or a variety of other things, that was always the limit that they were allowed to do before. So,
They probably don't have the budget for those big signs.
good point. Yeah.
Okay, we'll make that adjustment. Do you have anything before letter R, Carol?
Yes, temporary signs may be posted for no more than 30 days total in a 180-day time period.
Yeah, I proposed to just cross out the 180 time period and just,
Oh,
Yeah,
And
you
just
have that
say
on there.
enough for
Yeah,
now.
she deleted that,
great.
yeah.
I appreciate all the updates you made to this from the June thing. So my notes are kind of based on that.
Oh, okay.
Cross-reference.
That's
That's
good.
great, so 30 days total, that's what it says now.
Mhm.
How about Q, signs painted on or placed inside windows? Is there no size limitation here? Many windows are huge. Like Petro Plaza, giant signs. Would they be allowed to just?
That's interior windows, isn't it?
It says signs, allowed without permit, signs painted on or placed inside windows. I was just wondering if there should be a size limit to that too, or the bigger window you have, the more advertising you
I'm not sure, I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I'm not sure if I want to dictate what's going to do with somebody's within their own business areas like that, because it's not like on the street and in your face necessarily as much. I don't know if anybody else has a viewpoint on that.
I agree with you. I think that, if you own your business, you should be allowed to do what you want in your window there too.
Yeah, it's not interfering with traffic.
Stinks,
What I've noticed in Anchorage, I think it was a Staples store, they had totally non-functional windows that were like, they were signs. So they would put, they were windows, but they didn't serve as windows, they served as complying with code that required signs to be inside a window. Or that said, oh, if you have a window, you can put a sign in. So they said, okay, we'll design in our building windows that we will use for signage because it's a workaround. Well, that was just kind of,
Crafty.
yeah.
Well, I think Staples has a fairly standard building structure anyway, so, yeah.
But that was, anyway, I'm just curious, since we are trying to, reduce the noise level, like I mentioned for Soldotna, it's like, so loud. Do we also want to reduce the noise level in window signs?
I
Even
think,
though the windows are huge, is that okay to have a giant sign? Is that okay?
for the most part, if the owner has it, we don't have huge windows here. I mean,
Well, like Petro Plaza, the newer buildings have big windows. So it's just a
Yeah.
consideration. What do we want our town to look like? Do we want to allow giant signs because they're lucky enough to afford giant signs?
Yeah.
Giant windows.
It's
Well,
like their
this-
choice to block out the light, you know? Like, obviously, I'd rather have the light in a lot of our businesses, so.
Yeah, that's,
you know.
isn't that the work, isn't that the
Choice.
workout, right in the front there, is that's that workout room stuff, where they
Yeah.
have the blinds that come down and stuff, because people want to be able to look out the window too when they're working out. So, you know, I know, I'm a little bit ambivalent about the, you know, I'm not quite sure if I would like to dictate what somebody can do inside their own building like that.
Yeah, support the business, that's the trade-off, you know, by dictating inside, now you're not supporting the business. Which we want to do.
So, Courtney, what do we got now, the next one there?
Okay, so we'll make some proposed adjustments to the political signs. But then moving on to prohibited signs. I think the only adjustment, unless we add signs painted on roofs in this section, would be that J. We've now added that feather signs are prohibited. Except, and we'll have to update except as allowed under whatever that one section will be for the Mermaid Festival.
Yeah, those ones in particular. Okay. All right.
I did just look up, just on my phone real quick. They do make a lot of what they call non-tip bases that are like 30 pounds for some of those, I guess, portable signs. But they even make ones that are like traffic or like parking signs and all that kind of stuff that you can even have in a parking lot that are actually not securely grounded, but they have what they call no-tip bases on it. So anyway, there are types of signs that do seem that they would be very secure.
Yeah.
Well, the sandwich signs I think are good. I know we've used those. The only problem with those is it gets so windy sometimes your letters blow off.
So is it worth taking off those signs from the prohibited list?
If you got a secure base, I don't know. That's yeah, I'm good either way. I mean, I'm really, you know.
Yeah, if
I
you
mean,
get,
I
like,
would
I think if
request
you just
it,
make the if you guys want to do that, you could, but you could just make the stipulation that they need to be like weighted bases.
Not
or
just
something.
jammed into the ground and
Yeah,
knocked over.
they would need to be like weighted. You know, there's a lot of good-looking signs in there that would work, but they would need to be some type of freestanding weighted if you were gonna do that.
And I guess something to think about is, you know, this summer and other summers when we've had to speak to multiple mobile vendors about their flag banners. We've got a lot of kickback, of course. They don't feel like they're getting enough visibility, that people don't know when they're open, that sort of thing. So, I mean, potentially if we open up at least those portable signs, more options there for them to use, that would be an alternative sign structure that those mobile vendors could use that wouldn't be the flag banner.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily would want to just, you know, if you want to keep it prohibited or not. I just find that even these sandwich ones are actually less expensive, and you have both sides that you can work with. It draws attention. I'm good either way, honestly. What do you guys think?
I think the weighted sign should be allowed, just because that might be a less expensive option too, because those heavy duty sandwich boards cost like almost $200.
yeah.
So, you know, yeah.
Okay.
And so why not?
Okay.
give a
Courtney,
business
well,
potentially more options?
Courtney, your point is good, I think, like, can't do flags, but here are some temporary signs that are allowed. You know, you pointed to that, it's kind of an answer to the kickback a little bit. Like, we got you covered with these, you know? You have a few more.
So you're saying under F, except sandwich boards and weighted signs, weighted temporary signs with the base.
Yeah, that do not exceed 10 square feet per
Right.
side.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. Whatever definition.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That sounds good.
As long as it looks tidy, because that's the biggest thing is, you know, a lot of the times when people make these sort of, you know, homemade kind of things that look pretty tacky, and you just don't want that out there. Yeah. Okay, all right.
Could I ask, where are real estate signs? I didn't see that under 11.
They're temporary.
It's-
I only found it in the definitions. So if they haven't been added, suggest adding that to R.
What was that, Carol? What was the,
Real estate signs?
okay, yeah, yeah. And we see a lot of those, and we just assume because they're all around the same size that we have something governing, but if we have nothing governing it, then somebody can throw up whatever they feel like.
So the real estate signs are in the definitions, but they're not added to temporary signs allowed out there.
Good, yeah, good catch.
Could I move on to prohibited signs, D?
What-
Off-premises signs?
Where are you at? Where's that?
Page 16.
16.
So I would like to separate off-premises signs and/or billboards into two things. Because does this mean billboards related to temporary civic events are allowed? So if you separated, it would, because we have state law on billboards, so just say D, billboards, period. They're just not allowed. No billboards anywhere, anything. So just have a separate section, instead of combining off-premises signs and/or billboards, say D, billboards, and then E, off-premises signs except the posting of temporary signs relating to civic events subject to the limitations of this chapter. So real simple separation of those two different kinds of signs. And then the number.
So it looks like they're equating off-premise signs and billboards to be one and the same. It could get a little confusing.
Yeah.
So,
And billboards, just make it simple.
Are not authorized.
Not allowed.
Do we add a definition for billboards too then?
up in, I believe,
I don't know.
And right now, billboards is included in parentheses on the definition of off-premises sign.
yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay.
And then, so sign, I think the changes that were made in sign standards by zoning district, which require permits, so starting on page 16, was just eliminating that marquee signs were allowed in office, residential, auto, commercial, and industrial, since, I don't know if you remember our awning discussion
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year. But anyway, from that discussion, we had decided that only central business and harbor commercial should allow awning
Mhm.
signs. So that was just a cleaning up of code there. But other than that, was there any additional input for specific specific zoning districts?
Okay, which page are you on right now?
Just that section, sign standards by zoning district. So
What page?
16,
Page.
page 16 through 18,
Okay.
essentially. Bottom of 16.
And that change takes place in the middle of 17.
It makes it always harder on the computer, flipping back and forth. Wish I had the paper. Should've printed it out.
I have
Okay.
a question about residential districts and indirect lighting on page 16 at the bottom. As a resident who lives in a residential zone facing an institutional zone, planning and zoning approved internally lit signs for the hospital.
Mhm.
So I see those quite a bit. But the alternative was to have really hard to maintain bulbs, lights, ground shooting up and eliminating it indirectly. And I think those are much worse and they're harder to maintain, the snow gets on them, you plow them and stuff. So actually, I'm not opposed to allowing indirect lighting and internally illuminated signs in a residential zone. I think it's much cleaner, and it is what it is. But and they have a lot of signs, but instead of having a lot of these spotlights, going up to get all their signs, I think it's much cleaner to have them be internally illuminated. So I would delete that requirement. Where it says illumination of the sign shall be limited to indirect lighting. So I would eliminate that.
And just not allow any lighting
Um,
in residential?
Shall be limited, well, to indirect or internally illuminated. Spelled it out.
Okay.
So that would be if you're taking a residential district on that, and that could be a little, so somebody who wants to do a, if this is what I'm thinking you're doing, is they're putting a light toward maybe their address or something in the residential district of some sort, or is what are you referring to, like a?
I mean, there wouldn't be, because you can't have a sign for a home occupation,
No.
so there wouldn't be that. On the next page, it talks about signage for churches, so it's possibly referring to signage that would be for like some conditional use that's allowed in a residential zone. And then I don't have the land use table to see, but yeah, so there wouldn't be very many.
Yeah, because you really can't do much
Signs.
in a residential, some of
Yeah.
the residential area. I mean, office residential, but that's more, more
Commercial,
businessy, but,
yeah.
but if you're talking, the actual residential areas, all I can think of is, if there's like signage for churches or some of these other areas, I'm just thinking it must be something along the lines of either the name of the complex, maybe if there's a building name, a complex name, you
Yeah,
put the
that's
light in
true.
there, or the address itself. But the indirect lighting is good, I think, but I agree your point that, between snow and a variety of maintenance stuff, but also too, that I'd worry about how much does it cost to have a sign with internal lighting. I mean, can also be pretty spendy. I don't want to overly burden somebody with that. As far as, I know when we put some indirect lighting, just, at the Legion, we have it pointed down at the sign itself. It seems to be fine, it doesn't seem to be intrusive to anybody or like that, but when you have a sign or a name or something and you have to have the whole electrical or the whole lighting system self-contained, that could be a fairly expensive proposition, I would think.
I was offering it as an additional option, not to take away indirect lighting.
Okay.
But to say or internally illuminated. And keep in mind, office residential does have some commercial uses.
Oh, absolutely, yes,
So
it does.
this is part
Okay.
of that.
No, I
It
would,
just be an additional option.
yeah, I would support, that if somebody has that, but I was thinking that you might want to
Right.
take it away, sorry,
Right,
okay.
not take away,
Okay.
add that option.
Okay.
I don't have any other comments for this section, so unless commissioners.
I have one more question, going back to page 14. Under the signs filed without permits, I just was wondering, what's an incidental sign? Maybe I missed something. Yeah,
So,
just trying to understand what that is and why we allow that.
so it's the example that it gives is like a credit card sign or a sign indicating hours of business. So it's like on page 6 for the definitions, it's like a sign or emblem, a decal informing the public of goods, facilities, or services available on the premises. So what I think of this is like, usually on the door of a business, they might say like, credit cards accepted here, or Visa, Master, whatever, something like that, and then, like their hours on the door. So the incidental sign would just be something pretty small, that's just kind of on their window or on their door.
Sort of like a decal stuck on the door, like a lot of them do it that way.
Yeah.
So you can't, 4 square feet or less, so it's a big.
That'd be pretty, that'd be a lot, that would be a lot.
We take
Open.
Visa.
Okay, I guess it's fine, yeah.
Okay.
Then I can put a graphic there. I was gonna say too that there is a brochure that I made for signs that, like, signs allowed without permits and prohibited signs, that actually has pictures for each one.
Oh, good.
And they're not like these pictures are kind of, okay, yeah. So the pictures I have in the brochure are like specific examples in, like the real world.
Well, that's good to give, because I think a lot of people, when you try to read through something at times and try to envision what your description is without the picture, a lot of times people just don't wrap their brains around it. I have a hard time just going through it, so a picture is worth 1,000 words with a lot of that stuff.
So that was a little bit of, it can be a conversation of the balance of, we want to add graphics and images to code as much as it does help and facilitate an understanding code. But then we also do have the option of using the brochures,
There's only 2 left up there, so you guys have to kind of.
which these brochures are available upstairs for public to come get, and then online for people to look at as well. So we don't necessarily have to put everything in code as far as like the graphics.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, you also can use it in code and just say reference, the City of Seward brochure that delineates whatever, the graphics and stuff. So you won't have to change so much in your code all the time to reflect that. You can have a brochure that supports that. And that
Right.
can change as much as you need to. In the code, you don't have to go through a lot of the machinations of changing code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion for snipe signs. So snipe signs on page 17. Wait, page 7, can't read it, right? On page 7. It says, an off-premises temporary or portable sign illegally placed in the public right-of-way, and I'd like to add, or on a property that is not the site of the business or event.
So does that make more sense than saying an off-premises sign? So just delete off-premises and just say a temporary or portable sign illegally placed in the public right-of-way or on a property that's not where the business is taking place.
So would it make sense to say off-premises temporary or portable sign illegally placed in the public right-of-way or on a property that is not the site of the business or event? Because we have snipe signs.
On
all
other
over the place,
properties.
On private property, on stop signs.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying that off-premises means what the end of your sentence
redundant.
means.
On property.
Yeah, so
Property is not the
we could
site.
do one or the other. I don't mind whichever one
How
makes the
about-
most.
How about both?
Well, they're the same thing though. So you're saying it twice is what
Yeah, that's,
you're alluding to.
Okay, so that would be redundant to have off premises and a property that's not the site of the business or event.
yeah, that's what I'm saying,
Okay.
but we could just not say off premises, because then that makes people have to refer back to the definition of off premises, and we could do the,
Okay, that makes it clear.
yeah.
So it'd be a temporary or portable sign, yada yada.
Okay.
Yeah. What was how did you word the end of that then?
The yada yada.
So it'd be a temporary or portable sign illegally placed in the public right-of-way or on a property that is not the site of the business or event. And then I went on. These include sandwich board signs, signs on supports stuck in the ground or affixed to a tree fence, traffic signpost, utility post, or other support, utility pole, or other supports. So I just thought it would be helpful for people to know,
Yeah.
where and what is a Snyder sign.
Yeah, I think that's good. To add that.
I think sometimes in all, when you say off premises, it seems a little bit jargonish. I liked when Carol said that it was not the location of the business.
Yeah.
That's pretty clear to me.
Yeah, and it does make it for the lay person to just understand right away without having to dig around.
Yeah, okay. All right, we can move on to the next
I
round.
have one more.
Okay.
This is just such an important topic. So under definitions, banner, we have moved from banners being temporary signs to banners being permanent signs. Because they're cheap, they're colorful, you can get a $20 sign from Costco or used to Shutterfly on, durable material, and then you affix it, 4 corners kind of thing, but it's there, that is their sign. So the code needs to be updated to reflect that this is now what's happening. We have nicely designed, they're nice signs, but they're made of temporary material, easily replaced if they get frayed or whatever, but now they're permanent signs. So I didn't have time to incorporate that into the code, but it's just a concept that the sign code needs to adapt to, because that's the reality now.
I would hope that somebody would do something a little more permanent than those plastic banners, you
Well,
know.
they're nice looking.
They are, but they
probably
do.
don't even notice that they're not real signs, but,
Yeah.
they're permanent. And we could hope
Mm.
for that, but signs are expensive, and when you can get a nicely designed sign that's, happens to be made out of fabric, it will be your permanent business. So, just something to consider to update that. Thank you.
Okay.
There were, those were all the changes. Non-conforming signs and variance procedure would remain the same, what it's been. So, are there any comments by the commissioners?
I think we'll take what we've gotten tonight and hash that through, and we'll take a look at it again, because we've been back and forth, and it's sort of hard to wrap your brain around, all the changes and different things. Like when you get it cleaned up, then we can look at it. All the commentary that you have to put up with that we've thrown at you, that we can get a chance to see that again. So
Okay, so you want that at a work session again, or?
I would. I don't know about you guys, but I think I don't think it's ready for prime time. What we've just.
I mean, I like all the changes you made.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
All the things crossed out, like, I don't know. I thought that was nicely done.
Mhm.
I agree with the changes from the last work session to now.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. All right. Carol's got one more comment.
On page 18, under institutional park and resource management districts, signs for any permitted commercial and industrial uses shall conform to requirements in section B herein. I suggest that it say, signs for any permitted commercial industrial uses in the resource management district shall conform to the requirements in subject B herein. There are no commercial or industrial uses allowed in the institutional or park districts. So that title includes park and resource management, institutional park and resource, but there are no commercial or industrial uses allowed in the institutional park districts, right? So add under 1, signs for any permitted commercial and industrial uses in the resource management district. Specify that. That's the only place those signs would be allowed.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, I'm done.
Thanks, Carol. Alrighty, we'll then slide into the next section.
So,
Yeah, so kind of just circling back on, in looking at the concept of development requirements, and I thought we had a really good conversation last time you know, we're basically, I think what the outcome was, you guys were not necessarily against changing the development requirements, as long as there were a lot of other things in place to ensure quality development. We talked about like, yeah, we would not be against this, but we need to have like adequate parking, adequate storage, places for snow removal, green space, so that someone, if they got creative, they could do, if they got creative, they could make it look really good, like nice facade on the outside, and provide kind of the makeup for these other things. And so, you know, whether, you know, like you may have parking on the ground floor and you could make up, you could deal with the space. And so, kind of our thought really, I think would be the best way to go about this is to, an idea for you guys on this would be to go ahead and keep the code as is, but make it so that they could basically build something bigger without having more square feet on the footprint through like a very rigorous CUP process, where they could put these requirements in that CUP process. Like, you know, basically it allows them to be creativity and allows you to come before you. And we could have those requirements, all those things listed of having green space or whatever it is that was required in that CUP process. So the code would kind of stand on like, yeah, you need to do this. You can go outside of this, but you have to kind of show us what you got and make up for these types of
Well, it's considerations to allow them to develop that area, I guess is what you're referring to. And
Yeah.
The CUPs, because that's the thing that I'm always concerned about, as, you know, hopefully we get together with the work group on that. Because for the CUPs, I worry about developers coming in and promising the world and then not doing it. And that I think detracts a lot from the beauty of the town and the historic, you know, even the historic nature of the town.
Right. You know, and you know, like, so conceivably, could someone come in and put like a 6-unit development on a whatever square foot lot? And could they show us a plan that had the correct facade, that had adequate parking, that had like correct green space? But yeah, I do think it is, you're right, it is part of that greater CUP process and having teeth in our CUP process, that if these conditions are not met, then we have to create a provision for, like, you have to meet, like, you can't operate unless those provisions are met type of situation, and these have to be signed off on type of, you know, type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to operate and if they haven't met the CUP process, then you don't give them a permit to run their, whether it's an apartment complex or whatever the operation is. I'm also concerned about people who build stuff pretty quickly and then sell it without completing the CUP process.
Yeah.
Because that's a concern, because then the new guys who've got the place don't know anything about it, and I don't know if there's a way to insert that into the consideration for selling those properties, that's a check, you know, because as you know, you turn and burn, you know, properties, and if you don't have it completely done, or you haven't done, you know, put the, you know, the green space in there, or the whatever is, you know, told to be put on the CUP, it's done, they sell it, then they're stuck. The new guys are, so I'm hoping that, you know, maybe in the selling process, and I have no idea how that works, is there a check off for title people, or however, if that's something that's hanging on the property that's not complete before they could actually, they didn't complete these things before they sell the property. Don't know.
So, and we'll look into that, but I do think that from the conversation that you guys said you would be willing to kind of change the expanding footprint, but only if conditions like parking, storage, green space, landscaping, and the look of the building were met. And really, I feel like after we talked about it and thought about it, like, you would have to have I think the best way to go about it is by having that would be allowed only under a very tight CUP process. And I think in some ways we might need to redesign our CUP process, specifically maybe have like a format or a form for that specific application, development application.
Yeah, to track it.
That it would get, I think, if somebody, I mean, for some people that would give them a pathway, and they'd be like, yeah, we're totally willing to do that and get creative and create this really nice structure or building that meets all these requirements and that looks well and that's more of a compliment to the community.
Oh yeah.
But you're right, I do think it, so, But, and also tied to that was, Commissioner Hornseth brought up the form-based code, which I think like this right here is something we want to address in the meantime, and I'll let Courtney kind of talk about the form-based code in a minute here, but what we'll do is we can look at the CUP process and kind of find some ways that we can strengthen it, put teeth to it, find ways that we can kind of keep accountability and it from being passed on without knowing and that kind of stuff. And then I think, and also just look at like maybe like a form type of thing for this specific type of situation, an application, some requirements and,
Sure.
and that type of thing. And then we could bring that, if you guys think that that would be good, we could bring some of those pieces back to you at a further future date.
I would like to, because anything that helps, you know, with our limited amount of space, and then we can continue the historic look to it and have still a lot of green space to it, I think would be huge.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Like with the CUP process, do you sit with the applicant and like have a discussion? You know, it sounds like that's what this is, but like that sounds
Yeah.
good. You know, like here's what we want to do. Okay, look, that part looks good, but for this, we need more green space. You know, you kind of like,
Yeah, so it is an application process, and so I think in looking at this right now, we kind of have CUPs that come through us, and Courtney writes them up and we bring them to you, but I think in looking at this type of developmental CUP, this is one that would require like a work session presentation.
yeah,
For you-
applicants here.
Applicants here is their tentative plan, here's their like draft proposal and their application. You guys would just see how they're complying with the requirements that you guys set forth and what you'd like to see, and you would have those items on there, and then you could have discussion about it. Well, like, yeah, nope, that's great. Or, I mean, hey, that looks really good. You have the parking, you have a lot of great, we can see the visuals, you have a lot of great green space, you're hiding certain things that may be an eyesore with this. I mean, whatever those conversations would look like, or someone might bring something, you're like, no, we would not allow that unless this and this additionally are kind of met on that form, so type of thing. And so
I
then,
like that.
yeah. But I think at least it creates a pathway for someone to do something really good if they're willing to get creative.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I agree. Carol?
I'd like to point out you can't regulate aesthetics. I did listen to the meeting when you discussed it, and you can't. It's so subjective. So a plywood T111 cheap exterior siding might be what the builder can afford. But I don't think you can regulate that. I don't think you can say, well, I don't think T111 looks good. You have to put on fancy, vinyl siding or whatever, You can't really regulate aesthetics because it's too subjective. So what you can regulate is all those other items you were referring to. And as long as they had all those items, you're kind of stuck with whatever they put up, I think.
That meets building codes, and
Exactly. But as far as, is this a nice design, does that look good? And in my experience, they come with, oh, look at this beautiful, chalet we're going to build, and then you look at what they built, it's like they really value engineered it down to T111 siding, cheap roof, and off you go. So that's just a cautionary note. I really don't think you can say it has to look good.
yeah, I do think that, I know some codes do regulate where you get into kind of like that historic preservation overlay type of concept, but you can make things look period. You can require some of those things, which at least you can start getting them moving in that direction, instead of them making it look like a 1970s condo. You can at least make it look like a, which we all know those, like the way those were angled out and looked like. Instead of making it look like a 1970s condo, you can make it look like at least like a 1940s, like Chicago style something or another. I think there are ways that we can't necessarily dictate materials, but I think we can find ways, and especially if we're going to get into this form-based code here that Courtney can kind of just explain, which is really, it's a really interesting stuff in there, but I do think there are ways, and it's specifically in certain districts, that we can look at those types of things where we can actually have an impact and say, like, this needs to look within a certain way.
Parameter, some
Correct,
sort,
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, we'll kind of bring that around, and then I just do want to have Courtney, can she talk about kind of this form-based code a little bit more, and there's something in the packet.
Okay.
Yeah, so like, in lieu of bringing more information about CUPs and alternative process, the ordinance that was postponed, well, was our resolution to forward this ordinance to City Council that was postponed, changing the development requirements table notes, probably just continue to stay postponed until we have these further discussions, unless the commission wants us to. This was the ordinance on page 22. Okay. So yeah.
What were the asterisks in the table? I never found anything on page 26.
The asterisks pertain to the table notes. So they.
Can you show me where an asterisk is?
So on minimum buildable lot size, all of the asterisks would then be, you would refer to C notes 2 and 7. On the next,
Reference back to the resolution.
no,
I
well,
mean-
this is, I think where Carol's at is, so page 26
Right.
and 28 is just, it's from our code currently.
And so if you look like right here where it says like on that minimum buildable lot size, RR does not have an asterisk, but R1, R1, R2, R3, UR do have asterisks. And what it does is it refers back to this C notes 2 and 7 on the next page.
Because those are changes.
And so those would go down to, so that way it would just say for those specific ones, like note 2 says, it's got the buildable usable area specifically, and then 7 is an industrial district, no minimum lot size, width or setbacks are required for, so it's basically just pointing back to notes.
I just want a quick question, because the one in the grid, or in the table, it says, it goes to 7,000 feet, this has 6,000 feet, is there something, or maybe I'm reading it wrong?
Didn't we
Yeah,
change
this,
that?
it probably hasn't been updated in Muni code yet.
Okay, that was my question, okay, because,
Yeah.
but here it says 7,000.
Yeah.
3 to 7,000, and here it says 3 to 6,000,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Wouldn't you want to put an asterisk by the C note 7, 2 and 7? So really, I puzzled about this for a long time. It's like, where, because usually I'm looking for another one. So you go, here's the asterisk, and then here's where I find it. But there is no second asterisk highlighting where you're supposed to go. It's like a guidepost, it doesn't have the destination.
Yeah, that would be a good adjustment to make.
That's fair, yeah.
They're clarified.
Okay, so we will jump to page 40, and I'll just kind of breeze through this one. I put this guide in here mostly for your entertainment and education, more so than our deep review of it. Because if you read through it, form-based code is very intriguing. It could really potentially have a lot of benefits. One that I can think of right now is, the auto commercial district that we have in town that is primarily residential. There's nothing really to protect that residential look in an auto commercial area if someone wanted to bring in one of those auto commercial uses that's allowed. But, form-based code would be a way to protect that so that, auto commercial uses could still occur in those zones, but if you had form-based code, it would then restrict those commercial uses to certain looks that would then keep that residential type of feel. Anyway, that's just an example of, how form-based code could potentially benefit Seward. But as you go through, so like page 44, I just highlighted some things that, you know, if you don't want to read everything in this guide, if you just read the highlighted areas, kind of gives you a brief overview. So this kind of talks about, you know, conventional zoning, which is what we have here in Seward. And of course, you know, there were the good things for conventional zoning, that they were added to protect public health, safety, and welfare. So the conventional zoning was focused more on, you know, limiting the spread of fire from one building to another, separating out those heavy commercial uses with residential zones. So there were good intentions, and, you know, good things came from conventional zoning, but then also the bullets kind of show some potential negative side effects of this conventional zoning, you know, where you have more of these separated uses versus, you know, these walkable communities where you have residential and commercial intermingled, or I guess they're like 15-minute communities. I can't remember exactly what the terminology is, but anyway, and then I won't go through all the other bullet points, but you kind of get the idea. And then on page 45, this is the alternative, is form-based code. So form-based code really kind of encourages more of like a mix of land uses, which in theory works with the form-based code because it keeps things, there is a standard of, you know, how things look, you know, streetscape, building design, all that sort of thing.
You have like mini communities in those things. You have the
Right.
access to resources plus residential, plus the ability that it scales it down to make it more look like a mini neighborhood in that area, as opposed to the urban sprawl and suburbia out there, where you have the services in the city and the suburbia out there and nothing's happening. This provides little pockets of communities that has the services right there. That's sort of how I got from that, is that?
Yeah,
sort of
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and form-based code also focuses a little bit more on the connection with pedestrian and traffic with the businesses and residents versus, you know, right now there's kind of a separation of just like the roads are designed without consideration of the businesses. And so you kind of get these, you know, these thoroughfares, these roadways that aren't really connected well for pedestrians and vehicles. But form-based code kind of addresses that more, to create more aesthetic pedestrian ways and roadways and things like that.
I would say, like in the downtown area, kind of like a simple way to look at it is if you took it like this intersection right here, and let's say you like decided like you could put like some kind of like planters that would actually take up some parking spots, then you have your parking spots, then maybe you have your crosswalk that actually crosses down in the middle with kind of more planters around it, so you have a definite crosswalk in the middle of this section of 4th down here. And so you would have some additional green space, some trees brought up, a nice crosswalk in the middle. You would lose some parking spots, but it definitely makes it more like walkable as you add spots. You know, I think if you look at page 47, that kind of just shows you like the differences of like what things could look like if you have like a little bit bigger walkways or bigger sidewalks and you add trees to things. And, you know, awnings or whatever type of thing, but it just kind of, I mean, I think there's some simple ways of doing it, but it does, I think you did kind of hit the nail on the head of what that kind of ends up doing in the long term. So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So the majority of the rest of this guidebook kind of goes through, you know, it describes, you know, should your community adopt a form-based code, and gives some different scenarios for that, and then provides the different methods that the community could engage to incorporate form-based code. But the main takeaway from this guide is that it isn't as easy as us sitting down saying, well, we want to impose now a requirement for how a building should look, and Carol's kind of explained, you know, how that could be, you know, controversial and more difficult than us just putting something on paper. But if this is something, if form-based code is something the Youth Commission want to dig in a little bit deeper and have more discussions around, we're open to having those discussions. I think ultimately if we were to incorporate form-based code into our code, which I think, let's see if I can find, 'cause they have, anyway, within this guide they say, there's certain levels of how you can incorporate it. Some communities just do complete code overhaul, remove the conventional zoning and put in form-based code. Other communities pick a specific part of the city, a specific neighborhood that would benefit. I think they mentioned, for example, areas of your community that may be dilapidated or about to see some new growth or something like that. So there's different ways that we could incorporate it. We could just focus on a street and just do form-based, add form-based code to that street. But even in these small incorporations, I think we would benefit from having discussions about maybe involving a firm, like a planning firm, that could help us with this incorporation so that we do it correctly, so that we can have appropriate town hall meetings. And I know they even talked about, that form-based code is, a great time to have that discussion is when you're also reviewing your comprehensive plan.
Yeah, makes sense.
So this is something we can do along with our comprehensive plan update, is discuss some aspects of form-based code.
I like that idea. What I'm thinking is it's sort of hard here because it looks like you almost need to have some more space to, you're not going to tear down buildings and put the stuff up or anything like this because you want to continue to build on what we have here on this side. What about the development on the other side of the bay, the land that we have over there? Would that be a consideration there? Because, as what I've read through this, you have like, services there that, people can use, plus their housing is really close and everything else like this. So they're not constantly having to come all the way to this side of town. So the conveniences that are there for just sustainability and just basically convenience and to live and, have the things over there and, be able to just develop it in that, and they could be over there and I don't know, not have to drive nearly as much just to get into, the hub of this is the whole thing. They could have a separate community, not totally separate, but something that they don't have to keep driving back and forth with.
Yeah, that is a good example of a place that would benefit from, or would be a good place to incorporate
Well, see, if there's
form-based
nothing out
code
there, so you
in,
can start building without having to,
Right.
deconstruct other things. Because I
Exactly.
don't know what here in town you could, we're sort of jammed up as it is. I don't know how you would do it. I don't know. See, that's, from what I can see, and maybe other folks may have an idea.
I know we removed the city maintenance and all that area, I think it's gonna be,
Oh, but the homes that in that little area, is that, when that maintenance shop goes now, is that big, that area big enough for something along those lines?
Yeah, it seemed like,
Yeah, I don't know, to me it looks like it's a big community, I could be wrong, yeah.
it seemed like from what I read, you could apply this form-based code to one street. one
Yeah,
neighborhood.
that's a great
New
idea.
developments.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And I think the South Harbor uplands, eventually, like, they're, like the big, you go to the uplands down there where there's kind of like just a big gravel parking area more or less, except there's the memorial out there.
Oh, yeah.
Really, like, the long-term plan is to have that also, like, the harbor master's office, it's kind of the plan is to put the new one down there where they can actually see the harbor from their office. That would be a novel idea. But also too, like that could also be a place where form-based code takes place, because the long-term plan was to have it kind of mimic around there where you'd have another set of boardwalks or shops and parking as kind of if you look at some of our previous plans and things that are thought about, but anyway, that it is planned for the harbor's office down there. So I do think we do have chunks like that. I do think SMIC and the development around, there's going to be some housing and mixed commercial. I think that's a great place to do that. And I think we have lots of opportunities. I even think, like, we have all these vacant lots down here that we hope someday get developed, and it would be great to have them developed into something that's very tasteful and complements the rest of the community too, so we do have these little like pockets like that. So I think we have a number of opportunities, and even like if we do things, I know like a lot of the sidewalks in town need to be replaced at some time, And if you're replacing sidewalks, that is a great time to address, how can we do something different here? Or how can we create like little planters, or, yeah, you may lose a couple parking spots, but I think you gain a lot of aesthetic by doing that, or even like the Quality Park area. I mean, I think there's pockets of things that you could also do it in smaller increments as time goes on.
That one thing here had a lot of awnings, the street was going down there and it was just a regular old street there with, but then they upgraded it and had the awnings from the store that was there, and it was just created a big, almost like a little sanctuary as you can walk down the street, and it had the flower pots or the tree pots or whatever it is and things like this that worked out too. And here would be good because it rains a lot. Might help
Yes.
protect people.
But yeah, this does, I think if you look at our current values in our comprehensive plan, they would actually tend to point and lead to some of these things pretty well. I do think if we are going to go revise the comprehensive plan, which we do need to do, and we want that to make that a little more living document, that this would be, I think it's got some merit, or at least worth some further discussion.
Yeah, you can,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead,
So-
Carol.
We are a very small town, and I think a lot of this form-based is addressing much larger communities, much larger areas. We are fortunate, it only takes 10 minutes to go over to the far reaches, way over to Smith. It's 5 miles. People in Anchorage would love to have just a 5-mile commute to the big grocery store. So I don't see that Smith is so far away. Those poor people, they don't have a Safeway over there. They don't have a gas station. They don't have basic services. They don't need it. It's just 5 miles and you're back into a very economical place, a convenient place, lots of parking. We have that. We have those services. We have more than enough gas stations here. We have services that are well within reach of our very small footprint. But I do support, as you said, some of these smaller components that we should consider. But as far as throwing out our whole code, hiring an expensive firm who know nothing about Stewart to come in and say, oh, you can do this and that, I don't think we need that. I think we have enough expertise here in our community to know what we value, what we want. And we don't need to provide complete little communities that they never have to leave because they have grocery store, gas station, library, whatever, we provide those in a very economical way, the way it is. And I'd be up for looking at these smaller components so we can just make some, as we are already doing, making some adjustments. And I'd like to point out the picture here of the nice planter, on the sidewalk. Well, we did have those big round planters by, all on 4th Avenue. And people throw their cigarette butts and their trash in them. And we had on maintenance and the shop owners didn't have time to maintain them. And they were obstructions. People walking down the sidewalk have to go around or go in the street. It's just, there was an idea that was tried, and after a while, we just hauled those things away. Then you plant a tree in a nice planter. An urban tree suffers so much. They need space. So you can't really have a thriving tree in a planter. But you can have a rose bush or something smaller, but don't think trees in planters. Or even trees surrounded by a grate, and then it outgrows the hole that the grate has, and they just suffer so much. But a smaller, scale it down, still green, still beautiful, and it would complement our town. But I really don't think we need to throw out everything we have and hire a firm to redesign our town. We can tweak, we can use what applies, what would be reasonable to apply to us. And even as we design, if we're going to have housing in Smith, I don't know if it's going to happen in an industrial zone, but consider some things that could make that less of a gravel pit and more of a aesthetic place to live. But they can drive 5 miles to town. It's not really hard. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sean?
that was good. I would just add learning more about zoning and coding. So this is like good information for us to study. You can find elements that you like to bring to, our current code. Like page 45 is great. I think that, this was a lot of pages, but that really has some good bullet points. Just like what we talked about today, this is just one of these lower points. Provides information that's easier to use than conventional zoning codes because it is shorter, more concise, and emphasizes illustrations over text. Today with the signs, we've talked about how we like illustrations. So that's just like an example of how form-based codes can be valuable. Studying form-based codes or other types of codes, like this is stuff we should be doing. So I think it's good that it's just before us to kind of learn about, and you find one or two things that could be brought in, like, hey, this could work well, we know Seward, this could work well for Seward. So it's just good info, I don't think the overhaul, it's good to, I think the code's good and everyone knows it, or the experts do. So you just keep tweaking, but learning more about coding is good.
I think
So
also
nice work,
adapting.
Brennan, for, bringing this up.
Well, I think the pockets that you're referring to, whether it's over in, where the Public Works is or some of these others, if they can do something along those lines and mix it in and see if it works out, because I just look at some, granted, I've seen stuff like this, and even in places like in Brooklyn, New York, which is pretty big, but but they put stuff like that in these little tiny neighborhoods in there that are pre-existing neighborhoods that seem to work, and it's not like trying to be a little complete community in there, but it has the basic conveniences that makes it a community, or makes it like the deli or this or that, and they still have the homes, the way it's set up. You have all the storefronts and people may be living above them or something along those lines, and they have other little homes around there, and it seems to work out, but in a small setting like here in town, it might be something just to look at and explore. Again, I concur, we don't need a whole firm to come in because they don't know us. But it's something it's an exercise of something to see if it would work as a potential alternative, because, the standard suburbia doesn't always work, and there might be little pockets of things that are little, mini communities within the community that would be sort of nice, actually.
Yeah. And not like services, like I'm thinking more like a common bench for the neighborhood, or a
Yeah.
little garden, like think smaller things like that give this little neighborhood feel.
Anybody else?
Yeah, no, I brought this up because I thought it met a lot of what you were mentioning, values that we've been talking about, and that at the same time, I do think like there is a lot of value in having services like a 15-minute community. It's like, I know we have a lot of seasonal workers here and such, and maybe biking 5 miles into town is not what they want to do or can do feasible for them to go there every day, for groceries or whatever. So I think there's a lot of value in having that option to not have to get in a car, or you buy a car if they're only going to be here for a few months.
Also, too, see with the communities, because I think in this same article that you had talked about having the community, if you want to have a meeting, like whether it's a work session or just a briefing for people that would be interested in something like this, to see if people would like to, even not so much invest in it, but just explore it a little bit more. Like when they did the comprehensive plan, you had those things at the library, to discuss, and had tables and different things like this. It might be something that, might, pique the interest of the community in some respects as an alternative.
Or it doesn't, and you learn that, and you put it out there, and that's.
Yeah, because you don't want to be sitting at the, literally at the dais and making, Olympian decisions. You want, public participation of some sort.
Absolutely.
Carol?
Another point is it's market driven. So I noticed we have a vendor site over in SMIC, which would provide food, for the prison workers and the seasonals and campers. I've never seen a vendor over there. I don't know why, but a lot of this is market driven. So if they try it, they feel like they can't. We did have one over there 2 years ago, I think, and they gave up. It's like, we can't, everyone goes to Safeway anyway.
Was it COVID?
Pardon me?
2 years ago, was it COVID?
I can't, no, it wasn't COVID.
Yeah.
You probably have those records. It was at the Salmon Point, right across from Mankato Avenue, where they
Yeah.
thought they could capture prison workers on lunch break.
It's really hard to, I don't know if they must have hoped they had some signage, because having working there and stuff like that, you know, you just don't even see
That
that.
was pretty obvious. When you
Yeah.
come out of Mankato, there it was.
There was some.
But the point is, it's market driven, so you might envision, oh, they don't have to bike all the way to town, but who could afford to provide those services for them
Mhm.
and build a permanent structure, and it's only seasonal use, and, you know, so we are trying to provide those services with our vendor sites, but even those, there's 2 sites over there, they haven't been used at all.
Probably not enough people
So, yeah.
willing to stay in.
Yeah. So they end up, Seward City Bus has a contract with JAG, and they bring their workers back and forth. It works out.
So, and also an important thing to take away from this, on page 79, the conclusion for the guide, it's one of the highlighted sections. It states an error that can happen when this is attempted to be incorporated, where, you know, instead of making, like Sean Ullman pointed out, instead of making code easier and less restrictive and simpler, communities will end up making the mistake of just adding a new layer of regulation to existing requirements. So this is part of, you know, as we bring this up and say, you know, this is a concept that I think is worth engaging and having more discussions on, but the main reason why I think if we want to actually entertain incorporation of form-based code at even a small level, that we might want to find firms that are familiar with form-based code, that work with form-based code, that understand it, because if we don't incorporate an expert of some kind, we might make this mistake of just adding a new layer to our code that just makes it more complicated for developers, for us, enforcing it, and something that just ends up being like the CUPs, which, you know, where there's regulations that aren't really enforced.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
anyway, so those are those are our thoughts. That, yeah, we're not proposing an overhaul of code, and certainly, yeah, but if we're going to do this, we want to do it right at whatever level we do it at. So, and that's kind of for you as a commission to decide how much do you want to engage in as far as discussions or that sort of thing.
I was looking at some videos on this a little bit, and I think I'd like to go through and learn a little bit more. This is like the highlights, and, you know, you have to be sort of a planner and a bit, you know, smarter, you know, person on some of this stuff to get some additional information to make any real decisions on that. But it seems phenomenally, you know, another option, you know, thinking outside the box on how we do business.
Right, just even if we could speak to maybe potentially other cities or planners or experts that have implemented this code to see how it affects communities and how it can be incorporated into small communities. Because yeah, I mean, this this type of code, form-based code, seems to be implemented more in larger cities, but there could be a certain level of benefit that it could bring to Seward. But what that is, we don't know. I don't know.
Has anybody
So-
done this in Alaska yet?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
And can we do it just like a little piece, you know, where like you bring in like a little line in the code, and then you have, this is from form-based code, you know, or does it need to be more of a substantial, we're doing more form-based code style?
No, it can be as small as
Yeah,
we feel appropriate, yeah.
okay.
Maybe just good things to think about as we kind of,
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
forward towards the
Never knew nothing about
towards
it.
the comprehensive plan and seeing if we can, you know,
Yeah,
see how it goes.
Dig it.
I think so. Do y'all have anything else, commissioners? Anything? No? Okay. Anything to
Thank you.
say? Yeah.
Thanks, Carol.
Yeah,
Griswold.
as always, Carol.
Courtney and Jason, thank you guys so much. Selena, of
Selena.
course, thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna miss you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Well, I'm sure I'll be talking cemeteries with you.
Oh, and speaking of cemeteries, if you guys have not been out there, you guys should go out and see the Columbine.
I did take a look at that. It's cool, yeah.
They do look really good. Yeah, they do. Yeah. Carl, thank you for
Yes.
persevering to persevere.
All right, yeah.
Okay, well then it's 8:25 and we'll go ahead and adjourn the work session. Thank you all for the hard work. Carol, again, thanks.